In this episode, I'm going to give you an overview of who I am and why this podcast actually exists. A little bit about my story and all the different things that you can expect from this show. As we expand on this journey together, I hope this helps set the stage for you getting to know me a little bit more. This is not just another health or mindset or success podcast. It's truly a bridge between worlds: science, somatic, spirituality, psychology, trauma healing, and so many other elements that I've explored on my own personal healing journey and my professional career. I've been a mind-body-based practitioner for 20 years now, starting in the fitness space, transcending into a lot of the subconscious mind work and psychology work pretty early on when I realized I know what to eat and I know how to exercise, and I'm still struggling with this. And then seeing that most of my clients really struggle with a lot of the deeper issues as well. Emotional eating, stress eating. There was something beneath the surface that was driving their behaviors. And so very early on, even though I was doing fitness and nutrition and studying the field of alternative health and loving that, I started intertwining all of these deeper layers because I knew that they mattered. And that's, again, a big part of my own personal journey as I've navigated trauma, abuse, chronic illness, and a lot of different hardships in life that required me to really glean information and insights and elements of all of these different things. And trust me, along the journey, I had many experiences of getting completely out of balance, of the pendulum swinging to one extreme, of hyper-focusing on one area and neglecting the others. In fact, that's the very reason that I developed my method, the Satori method, which integrates all of these different components in a seamless way. It's because I needed to keep them all managed and nourished in my life in a way that didn't require me to revolve my entire life around tools and exercises and meditation. So if you're someone who loves personal development, changing and growing, whether you're new on your healing journey or you're far in it, and you've been focusing on these aspects of your health, mental or physical, individually, your mindset work, your fitness, your therapy, your biohacking, and you love all of those things, but you find you kind of get in a vortex and you're looking for a space where we can really go deep and elaborate on all of those cohesively, this is your spot. And again, the reason that's so important to me is because it's how I healed from everything that I've healed from in life, from very abusive and toxic relationships, from a brain injury, from 5 different chronic illnesses that do not have a good prognosis, that kept me almost completely debilitated for almost 6 years. These are tools that I use to help support my brain, my body, my nervous system, my mindset, my spiritual health. And these are tools and insights that I've explored professionally or deeply on a personal level. And I'm going to finally be able to bring all of those insights to you. So I'm going to share a few elements of my personal journey and some of the things that I've navigated and some of the training and the background and the things that I've explored professionally and how my career has evolved, so you can get a better idea of who I am and the lens that will be informing this show and what you can expect. So on the personal side, I grew up in a very unique, unconventional household, basically a religious cult, a household where everything revolved around a lot of extremes, whether it was extreme diet protocols and we weren't allowed to practically eat anything, to extreme hard labor in the sun working days with my dad's tree service, to a lot of extremes around purity and fear-based things of the end of the world. We lived off-grid, away from the world, and we were immersed in this very small religious world that we had to travel across the country to plug into. So right out of the gates, I was subjected to a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma, a lot of extreme child labor, a lot of rules, a lot of fear, and basically just survival mode straight out of the gate. I tried to commit suicide at 14 years old because it was all so much. Too much to bear, too much to handle, mentally, physically, emotionally. I was shutting down, and I did not want to continue. When that attempt failed, I knew I need to find a way to get out of here or I'm not going to make it. And I basically devised this entire escape plan with the help of one of my sisters who had already left the home. She was older. And I ran away at 16 years old. I got thrust into the real world and had a lot of really hard lessons to figure out right away because I was so sheltered and I had no idea how the world works. I'll never forget the first place I walked into and applied for a job was Jimmy John's, and I showed up a couple days later after being hired in flip-flops. I'll never forget her name, but this manager, her name was Sunny, looked at me like I was the dumbest person on the face of the planet. I was like, "What are you wearing? Why are you wearing flip-flops?" I had no concept of the simplest, most basic things, like that you don't wear flip-flops to restaurants, because I'd never really been in restaurants. So that was a lot of my early childhood. Also starting an eating disorder at age 9 because I sat down to eat, and even though we had extreme dietary guidelines, we ate only a few things. My dad said, "Holly, you're getting kind of fat." And that started, as a 9-year-old girl developing, that started and set into motion years and years that I would struggle with an extreme eating disorder. So there was all of this groundwork. And then I run away from home. I get in a really horrible relationship with essentially a pedophile because I was 16 and he was 35, but he was one of my ways to escape the home environment. And it set into motion all of these patterns and these trauma responses and these survival modes that had already been initiated, but they were just compound so much further. I then go to Nashville to pursue music because that was my one true dream. I experience a violent assault that resulted in a brain injury there. I spend years working in bars and restaurants and working 15, 20-hour days while starting to try and establish a fitness career. I started studying health and fitness. I got my personal training certification, and I knew I was obsessed with that world, mostly because I was still trying to be skinny myself. But I started to really fall in love with the science of nutrition and exercise the more I got into it. So I'm living these kind of opposing worlds of fitness and nutrition in the daytime, but I'm still struggling with an eating disorder. I'm still trying to figure out life. And then I'm sometimes cleaning horse stalls in the daytime, and then I'm going to a restaurant to serve people, and then I'm going to a bar. It's basically just like working 24/7 in these opposite worlds. After years of that, I had gotten deeper and deeper into the personal development worlds. I had started really studying psychology and the law of attraction, not only to infuse that in my personal life, but also to inform my career in the fitness space, because I was still struggling with binge eating and a lot of addictive behaviors, feeling out of control with food. And I noticed a lot of the women that were coming to work with me were struggling with the same. So I knew pretty early on, there's something more here. This subconscious, this mindset, this psychology piece, this is pretty important. So at the very onset of me starting my fitness career at 18 years old, I was trying to re-engineer the way most of the fitness world was doing it, which was just eat less, exercise more, while I'm still trying to survive and figure out life. After a couple years of that, I had gone deeper and deeper into these worlds, and I actually started experiencing a lot of medical challenges pretty early on. Fitness competitions compounded that a lot. So when I hit a brick wall and developed my first kind of chronic illness struggle where I got really, really, really sick, and it was like 22 years of just pushing my body to the limits, never sleeping, all of this stress and anxiety, I reached a breaking point. And that was what shifted my career towards the healing arts. I enrolled in this incredible healing arts school in Nashville, Tennessee, called the Natural Health Institute. And that was where everything changed for me. I thought exercise, nutrition, mindset, that's it. Those are the important things, right? But yet here I was completely falling apart, sick, struggling, and not doing well at all. It was in that beautiful container that I started to learn all about somatic healing, trauma in the body, stress in the body, the way our tissues respond to trauma and pain, all the deeper layers. And this school was very Eastern based. I started studying energy medicine. Eastern-based modalities like acupuncture and acupressure, all of these different things. And my mind was blown. My world opened up so much. And that's when I started infusing all of these different things into my work. And that's when I started my business. At 23 years old, I started my first business. It was called Kaizen Concepts. And it was really like mind, body, soul, nutrition, fitness, mindset, but then this other layer too with the healing arts. So my business grew from a sublease to my own facility, and it continued to evolve more and more into this beautiful gym and wellness center that did everything from martial arts to athletic development to sports therapy. We were really this healing hub where all of these different people that honestly, when I look back, were a lot like me. They went through a lot of hardship and adversity, and they were just looking for a place to kind of call their home, to feel at ease, like they weren't being judged or they weren't being shoved in a box or pushed to extremes. They found us, and we had an incredible community. After years and years of that, my health continued to decline, and what really happened was I was so passionate, and I was also still supporting myself, and now I had this big location to support and trainers to pay and all of these people depending on me. And it was like the pressure got bigger and bigger and bigger. I still wasn't sleeping. I still was surviving on coffee, adrenaline, and passion, as I always say. And my health kept declining more and more, which was frustrating because here I am living, breathing health and wellness, but I'm not doing so good. So I started to try deeper and deeper stress management techniques. Okay, I need to start taking a day off. I need to not start at the 4 a.m. classes. I'll have my other trainer do that. For years, I kept trying to manage my stress in my life a little bit more, and things would maybe change a little bit, but I still kept getting sicker and sicker. The last year that I owned my facility, I started traveling more and more, and that was the one time I finally felt like I could breathe and like I was okay. And every time I would come back to the facility, life felt smaller and smaller. It felt more and more like a cage because there was this big, beautiful world out there. And then I was coming back to this box. And I also, my gym evolved and developed, we did a lot of different things, but it kept going further and further down the fitness, weight loss, athletic development road and further away from the yoga and the meditation and the other things that I loved so much too, because the nature of things is more people are interested in weight loss for spring break than they are meditation to heal their trauma. So I was feeling out of alignment there, and I knew I wanted to do something more and bigger. And that is when my company Zen Finders was birthed. On a trip to Italy, I knew this is it. I want to take people on these immersive, transformational experiences where we get to cover all of this stuff in a beautiful exploration of the world on these travel retreats. So at the time, I got engaged, decided to close my gym, moved to Charlotte, and decided to start everything from scratch. Everything from the ground up. And I was ready. I was so ready to walk away from that business, but I really had no idea how much I would grieve the loss of that because it was the only place that was really home to me. It was my community. It was not only a incredibly steady income because the business was thriving, but it was what made me feel fulfilled every day that I woke up and like I mattered and like I had something to give the world. But still, I knew I wanted to do something new and bigger and better, and it was all going to be worth it. And shortly after moving to Charlotte was when everything started to fall apart. It was like 31 years of all of that pushing and striving and working and all of that trauma because I went through numerous, again, very toxic and abusive, unhealthy relationships. I didn't really have a local support system. I had a few close friends, but my family wasn't there. I had a spiritual home that was good, but I was still doing a lot of life alone. It was still fight or flight and survive for many, many years. And after a lifetime of that, over 3 decades, I then move across the country, close a business, start 3 new companies, go vegan, get married, hit the ground running, and everything radically changed. And even though those are things that most of the time we would say, oh, that's so exciting, all of those positive changes, it was a lot of stress. It was a lot of uncertainty. And what I now know and can recognize is that every bit of stability and safety that I had in my life that I had spent 8 years building in my gym and wellness center was ripped out from underneath me. Every semblance of familiarity in my friends and my community, my spiritual home, all of it gone. And then I'm thrust into a city, dropped into a new spot, and figure it all out again. And my body basically said no. Now, I had traveled to Italy, and after that trip to Italy, I had contracted strep throat. I got really sick after that trip, went on antibiotics, and even before the move, my health went from decent, can have some good days, I'm feeling okay, I could still work out, I could still do a lot, to it really tanked. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back on top of the move and everything else. So by the time I got to Charlotte, my body was just completely tanked. And if you know or have studied anything about chronic illness and post-viral syndromes, you know very often people go from being healthy or perfectly fine to sometimes debilitated, just bedbound with illness after a viral infection that their body just can't recover from. And when you have a lifetime of stress and trauma and you don't have those resources, that can make you even more vulnerable to that. So that's a big part of what happened with me. That started a whole new chapter of my life, which in coming episodes, I will dive much deeper into, from the challenges I navigated in my marriage to trying to build a new professional identity, not having that element of I own this gym to fall back on, to the spiritual challenges, to being bedbound, to creating a business in a different way because I launched my companies in a bottle during that time. I'll elaborate on those 6-7 years in a later episode, but that's just the first 30 years in a nutshell. And throughout all of those challenges and all of those things, I was pretty much obsessed with personal development and therapy and healing modalities and all the things. And they would help one area would change or grow or shift, but maybe this one would get neglected. And that's really the reason I'm sharing all of that right now, is so that you can see I spent literally from the get-go my entire life studying and learning and evolving and being successful and having a lot of this external stuff, but it wasn't cohesive. It wasn't built in a way that put me first. It was all coming from a place of striving and pushing and changing, and that energy of contraction of fight or flight, really, for so many years. And eventually my body broke. And eventually I had to learn to do things completely different. And that didn't mean walking away from everything I learned. It didn't mean all of that stuff I had studied or implemented was futile. It just meant that there was some missing pieces there. And that's when my journey much deeper into the nervous system, the brain, the subconscious, and our energy body really went much deeper. So I can say the professional part in just a few minutes, which is that each layer that I explored was, again, because I was desperate. I was looking for what's the missing piece, and sometimes we tend to think it's the one missing piece. Sometimes it is the one missing piece. Sometimes there is one thing for us that unlocks everything else, but sometimes it's several pieces, and it's really about bringing all the pieces together in a way that fit. And that's where I think a lot of people are missing the boat. They're not getting the most from all the different things that they're trying to get a positive change from because they're not set up in a cohesive way. So professionally, I've studied everything from energy medicine to energy psychology to mindset work out the wazoo. I think I've read every personal development mindset success book on the face of the planet. Well, listen to, because I'm an Audible girly. But I never stopped pouring into myself knowledge, resources, healing, and then the spiritual side, constantly studying and exploring spiritual elements. And what I arrived at through the 50, 60 modalities and things that I've trained and become certified and licensed in is that our problems tend to always be multifactorial. They tend to always have a spiritual component, an energy component, a psychological component, a neurochemical component, so a biological component, and then a body-based, brain-based, nervous system-based component. So we have this entire spectrum of things that influence us with how we feel and how we exist in the world. And yet we often try to approach mental health with either medication or talk therapy, just these one little components. Or then the spiritual world says, oh, you just need some plant medicine and just to surrender. And the mindset world says, you just need to not play a victim. There's all of these complex aspects of being a human that a lot of these industries and avenues try to condense down to one component. And not only is that not helpful, but oftentimes it's harmful. Because for me, in my component of chronic illness, when I would explore the spiritual part, because I did easily see some spiritual connections there and some spiritual lessons that were there for me to learn. But when I would go and try to learn from spiritual leaders, they would diminish and bypass all of the other stuff, which turns out I have a soft tissue, a genetic disease that makes my soft tissue incredibly weak and fragile. Well, no spiritual concept is going to override that and make that not a thing that I have to navigate, but the biochemical part. When I learned certain supplements and protocols that I could do to actually regenerate some of the tissue and the way my body literally laid down collagen, that helped that. And then I could go explore the spiritual thing. So there's so oftentimes people that want to put all your problems into one box. And that was what made me so frustrated over the years. And it also harmed me a lot. So a big part of what I do in my journey now is, for one, I've explored a lot of different modalities. I've worked in a lot of different spaces. I went really deep on my own healing, from gut health to brain health, neurology, psychology, childhood traumas, spiritual, esoteric, all the realms. And again, I've done a lot of training in these realms. So when I work with somebody, I can see I have a very, very good eye for being able to navigate. These are your core areas that you need to focus on. And my passion with bringing this podcast back to life is to present all of these different pieces of the puzzle in a way that people can try them on, that people can say, maybe that's something that I'm dealing with. That makes a lot of sense. Instead of being the spiritual podcast that just puts everything through a spiritual lens, or this is the mindset podcast that just says mind over everything, or the alternative health space, which can be, honestly, the alternative health space is just as rigid and closed-minded as Western medicine in a lot of ways. Everything's a parasite. Everything's mold toxicity. Everything, they just put it in different boxes. And even though they're holistic health boxes, they're still very rigid and narrow-minded sometimes. So my goal is to bring all of these concepts and these ideas and these elements that could be a possible piece of your puzzle, let you try them on, bring them to you in a non-biased way, even things I may disagree with. I challenge myself, and I'm committing to bringing concepts to life and bringing guests on who I don't necessarily agree with, or who I don't see eye to eye with every single thing on, because that's good. I have the answers for me, a lot of them, and I'm very good at helping other people find the answers, but the answers aren't the same for everybody. And so all of these insights have value. All of these fields, from a vegan diet to a carnivore diet, which I'll go deep on the diet space because that was maybe my deepest field for the longest period of time, was nutritional science. I'll share with you what I'm doing, what I've done over the years, from an emotional eating, healing from an eating disorder level, to a mitochondrial illness level. I'm going to bring these concepts to you in a way that allows you to get the information and then make your own informed decision, just like I did. But my goal is for it to not take 20 years for you, or 30 years of struggles and challenges. My goal is to bring them to you in a way that's concise, that's clear, that allows you to go deeper if you want to. And hopefully there's some things that are unlocked that really change your life. And even if it's not personally relevant to you, my biggest hope is that it helps expand your mind for the truth in everything. Because if there's one thing I've learned a lot being in the public eye, from the nutrition space to medical freedom spaces, all of these different spaces, the world has gotten progressively more polarized and combative with anything that doesn't fit their perfect mold, their perfect idea of how something should be. We see this in politics. We see this in the health spaces and the medical spaces. Everybody's at war. And I pulled away from social media and sharing my voice at all for many years because I got so exhausted with that. I felt like I couldn't say anything without someone disagreeing or wanting to start a fight or telling me I was wrong or telling me I was stupid. And the reality is, sure, you'll always get that. But the truth is, there's truth in everything on both sides, red, blue politically, keto, carnivore, nutritionally, and everything in between. There's a little bit of truth in all of it. And there's a little bit of application for different people under different circumstances in all of it. And my goal is to help bring together those views that most of the time people just disconnect from or reject or dismiss or say, nope, 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 because I'm in this camp and this camp says that camp's wrong. My goal is to really open up those deeper conversations so that we can learn more and more from each other and not get stuck in these boxes that don't serve anyone. So that's a little bit about why this podcast has been a long time in the making, why I think it will truly be different in this space, whether it's the health space, the mental health space, the success space, is the combination and the collaboration of bringing all of these insights to you and saying, try this on, try this on. Now, I can definitely get fiery, and I definitely have some strong, deeply held convictions on certain things that I think are pretty cut and dry. But the rest of it is, I hope this works. Try this on, see how this goes for you. What if you thought this way? That's my goal with this show. So I hope that this episode helps set the stage for you to understand why this show has such a broad range of topics and will have a lot of different ranges of depths and different fields. And I hope it's helped you get to know a little bit about me and some of the stories and experiences that I've navigated that will influence my perspective on these topics as I go through the interviews and the solo episodes and share this journey with you. Again, I'll get a lot deeper into the nuances of each individual thing throughout the life of the show, but I wanted to set a little bit of a stage because there's a lot of options out there and a lot of shows you can listen to, but I want this one to truly be different, and I really hope that it helps change your life and unlock some perspectives and viewpoints that shift something for you for the better. I look forward to getting to know you along this journey. As always, make sure to reach out, say hello. I'm very active on my social platforms. I love hearing from you. I would love to hear which episodes resonate with you, which episodes you'd like to see me cover. And you can sign up below for secret episodes, all the updates, and stay more connected there if you want to. I'll see you in this season 2 as we jump into a whole new realm of brain body speak.